In 2024, it feels like everyone you see online is starting or already is involved in a reselling business. You see influencers on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook making all of this money and all of these crazy claims of $10,000 weeks and $120,000 salaries per year and gross incomes and sales and all of these crazy numbers. You see vacations and weekends at Starbucks or weekdays at Starbucks and at Goodwills and thrift stores, people taking pictures with full carts, and it looks amazing. But what is the truth about being a reseller and running a reseller business? In today's video, we want to uncover the curtains and reveal the truth of what a day-to-day life is like as a reselling business owner and what the actual incomes are of a lot of these people talking about their six-figure incomes and their gross sales numbers, and really break down the numbers for you so you can see what it's really like to run a reselling business and how much you can actually make doing that. So you'll have to stay to the end of the video to be able to check out when we reveal those numbers. We'll talk about our own, and we'll talk about percentages that most resellers are profiting on with their profit margins, and we're also going to break down some misconceptions about what it's really like to run a reselling business. So stay tuned, and welcome to this video.
Hey everybody, my name is Bethany.
I'm Sean, and we are Trash Pandas Thrift. I like that every single time. It's always tons of fun when we do that.
We are a six-figure reselling business, and on this YouTube channel, we share with you all of the tips, the tricks, our own experiences that we've had along the way in our reselling business so that you can start or grow yours.
Yes, I like how you said six-figure reselling business, as today we're exposing the six-figure reality, and you'll see our numbers too, so that'll be very helpful. And we are actual six-figure resellers based on take-home pay, which we'll talk about. But it depends how you define it, I guess. Either way, we are going to break down some misconceptions, and we're going to start off with the biggest misconception of all, or at least one of the biggest misconceptions. There's a couple of them. The biggest one that I think that we have is point number one, which, by the way, we do have notes for today's video. So if you see us looking down a little bit, it's because we're not lying to you guys and have like a teleprompter. We're looking at our notes and we're making sure we hit all the points that we want to hit because it's important. But the biggest misconception that we have written down for today is that reselling is fun every day, all day. You want to give a little bit of a reality check as to what reselling is like in the day-to-day life?
Oh yeah, reselling, I'm the biggest fan. I love reselling, especially my favorite task has always been sourcing, and I love sourcing. You will find me almost every single day, if you let me, sourcing at the Goodwill outlet. And that's the catch, right? We can't spend every single day of our reselling business sourcing, even if that's the most fun thing to do. There are so many tasks that need to get done throughout the week. And even as a two-person team, we find ourselves even looking at our own schedules and seeing where is everything that we're going to do? Where are we going to put it in our schedule? As a one-person reselling business, before Sean joined me, often I was working super long days, 12, 14 hours, especially if you have a full-time job, you have school, you have another commitment. If you're a single mom with kids or even a family that relies on you, it can be a lot. Now, just off the top of my head, of course, sourcing, the most fun, right? Well, depends on who's checking, but for me, the most fun, flaw checking, picturing, measuring, skewing, inventorying your items if you have an inventory, and even if you don't, that's even more time that you're gonna add. Listing, responding to messages, shipping, post office, it goes on and on. There are so many individual tasks as a reseller that it almost feels like too much to do in one day sometimes.
Yeah, and the thing is, and this is going to lead into another point that we're going to make as misconception number two, but the thing is, it's really hard to fit this into a practical schedule if you've never been self-employed or run your own business before. Because we're so used to showing up to work or so used to being told, here's what you have to accomplish today. You do this, you get paid. Right? And the thing is, when it comes to reselling and running your own business, there is no direct path. There's so many things that you have to do and to accomplish, from sourcing to picturing to listing to packing to shipping to skewing to messages to platforms to cross-listing. There's so many daily tasks. So it is a huge misconception that you just wake up in the morning and you rise and shine, and you go get your Starbucks and you leisurely walk through the thrift store and you flip through items and, oh, look, there's $125. That is not a day in the life of a reseller. That's a highlight, of the day in the life of a reseller, but that is definitely not the day-to-day.
It's something to take pride in too. As resellers, we are literally creating value in the items that we are reselling. It is our blood, our sweat, our tears, and we work for that profit on every single item. That's why when you see videos of people taking an item for $5 at the thrift store and reselling it for $100, there was a lot more work that was put in behind the scenes for that person to make that money. And oftentimes, it is something to be prideful of.
And that leads us to misconception number 2, which is that you'll work less hours and make more money running your own business as a clothing reseller. That is just totally untrue. Like we were talking about before with the scheduling, a lot of the time, especially when you're first getting started and you're trying to figure your way out through the maze, the labyrinth that is reselling and all the different miscellaneous tasks that need to be accomplished, you're probably going to be working 10, 12-hour days, depending if you're going full-time or not. Even if you're part-time, you'll be working more than you thought you would part-time. Sometimes you'll be working 20, 25, 30 hours a week just to make the minimum that you want to make. And that is the reality of it. And here's why. Some points that I had written down. Number 1, before I even get into some of those points, is that you probably will end up working less hours when you're first getting started, especially at a 9 to 5 for the same amount of money, or even at a part-time job, just because it's an overwhelming amount of new information and new things to accomplish. Some things that I have written down is that everything falls on you. Everything, the sourcing, the picturing, the listing, these aren't just tasks that make it, a normal day in the life. They are things that you have to do to make money. If you do not list, you do not make money. If you do not buy the item at the store, you do not make money. If you buy the item, you picture it, and you list it, but it doesn't sell, you do not make money. If you buy it, picture it, list it, sell it, and you don't ship it, you don't make money, right? So these are all things that are so important and vital to understand, and you probably will not work less hours. I'd be shocked if you were even working similar hours to what you were working at a full-time or part-time job to accomplish the same amount of income. You're probably going to work more than you thought. You're definitely going to work more than you thought you were, but you're probably going to work more than you even had anticipated to begin with.
Because it's so easy to. There is always something you can do as a reseller. Even if you're already listed, even if you don't have anything to ship, you could sit down, look at your listings and say, I want to relist these. I want to work on their titles. Or I want to watch more reseller content on YouTube. I want to learn more. It is so easy as an entrepreneur, as a reseller, as a business owner to just fill up your free time with stuff that, yes, it is very important stuff for your business and things that you should be doing. But oftentimes it's really hard for us to put boundaries, even for us, to put boundaries on our work, on our life. What is our work time? What is our lifetime? And how that you can actually separate that so that reselling does not consume your entire life.
And that's why it's so important to have a schedule for yourself that you stick to. What days will you be sourcing? How many hours will you be sourcing? What is your shipping time? How often are you responding to messages? You have to take control of the reins or they will take control of you. And on top of that too, more things that fall onto your plate, this is becoming a little overwhelming, is taxes, bookkeeping, miscellaneous business things that you have to accomplish on a day-to-day basis. They are just things that fall into place that you just didn't have to worry about before because you weren't a business owner. And this is just something that I think so many people misinterpret and get frustrated by when they first get started. They're like, I don't understand. I'm working for myself and I'm working more than I ever have. Yeah, that is the benefit of working for yourself. The good thing when you work for yourself is that you can make as much as you want. The bad thing when you work for yourself is you can make as much as you want.
Yeah.
Right? As much effort as you put in is almost directly correlated to as much effort as you'll get put out. And that's not even true because the reality is if you put in low amount of effort, you'll get terrible results. If you put in okay amount of effort, you'll get low results. If you put in really good, solid 7 out of 10 efforts, you'll get bad results. If you put in great, exceptional effort, you'll get good results. And if you are top tier, cream de la crop, top 1% in your effort, you'll get really, really good results. You'll get great results. It does not equal the amount of, your outcomes do not equal your input. Your output does not equal the input. You need to put twice, 3 times, 10 times the amount of input to equal a little bit better of an output. And that's just the reality of it. Another misconception that we have written down is that reselling itself is an easier business than others to build and grow quickly. Especially because we live in the gig economy, we live in the side hustle economy where everybody's trying to start something new, and everybody looks at reselling and they're just like, oh, that's easy.
I always like to say reselling is simple, but it is not easy. So, what do I mean by that? It is very much a formula, right? There's a lot of science when it comes to reselling. We just want to go to the thrift store or wherever you're sourcing. We want to find items that we can flip for a profit. Seems easy enough, right? All we need to do is have eBay, search the item online. Does it have a good sell through rate? Is it selling for above X dollars? Okay, I'll take it home. That's it, right? Not exactly. In the reseller market, in the secondhand market, everything is always ever changing. The same brands, the same items that I would have taken home to resell 5 years ago, honestly, a lot of them I wouldn't even touch today as a reseller on platforms like eBay and Depop and Poshmark. And that is just the reality of it. You are on your toes. You are always chasing the ever evolving trends, especially if you're a reseller that doesn't have great access to great brands, to high sell-through rate brands, to designer items. You're definitely going to be relying on something that's not as scientific. There is no formula for, is this cute boho top with puff sleeves going to sell? That is a learned experience and not something that a lot of people can learn just by reading something online.
You have to stay on top of current trends, styles, aesthetics, current brands, seasonality, right? It's not just, I pick this item up and does it sell or not. That can be the case some of the time, but the reality is, how many of those pieces are just that easy that you just pick up and they can sell? Very, very few. How many thousands of pieces Bethany and I have to dig through to get maybe 50, 60 pieces? How many hundreds, if not thousands of items do you have to go through and touch at a physical retail store to flip through and see if you can find the Lululemon? And then you do find the Lululemon and it's priced at $19.99. So there's no room for profit.
I'll be completely transparent with you guys. The amount of, if you look at our content on YouTube, on other social media platforms, and you see videos of us finding these crazy, amazing items, we do. We do find awesome items. You don't see how much I had to go through just to find one. Right. Like, you didn't see the 1,000 items I was digging through in a bin. Some of them literally stained with God knows what on it, just for me to find that one Lululemon item. Or if you're at a thrift store, how many Lululemons you had to touch to find one that wasn't marked up. It's a highlight reel. Social media is a highlight reel, and oftentimes it doesn't really show you the true reality of what it's like to be a reseller in any type of thrifting environment.
And another thing that I want to add in there too is a lot of people might watch content and be like, oh, that reseller got lucky. They found a bin full of Lululemon. Or that reseller got lucky. They found, Bethany found Eskandar the other day, a really high-end brand, right? And the reality is that luck is not just this ethereal thing that exists in the universe. No. Luck is a combination of skill, some luck and timing, and also being there to find the lucky thing or the opportunity. We source 4 or 5 days a week right now. And in Austin, we were sourcing 7 days a week. We spend countless hours touching thousands of pieces so that you can see on the highlight reel the 10 items that we got that were amazing. Yeah. Right? And that is just something that people do not talk about. They make it look like it's this easy thing and it's an easy business and you don't have to have the knowledge and all you gotta do is just have the eBay app and you can go make money. Yes, in theory, this is partially true. And if you actually want to grow it to an income that matters to you and not flip 1 or 2 pieces a week, there's so much more that goes into it, especially the maintenance and the growing of your knowledge base.
This isn't a bad thing either. I often say your biggest weapon as a reseller is your knowledge. This is your edge, right? Our edge is how much do we know that we can find that other people may not know when they're digging, or the fact that other people may not even be putting in the work as you. Maybe you know about brands that thrift stores are not even pricing up and you know them. That is your edge. This is almost like a double-edged sword. Yes, it is not easy, and I will never say that it's easy, but good things are never easy. And once you get really good at knowing the knowledge of different styles of brands that sell, it is your greatest weapon, and that's always just going to be hard.
Sorry about the coughing, by the way. I have a little bit of a cold. So I'm like sitting up, Bethany's talking, I look like I'm dying.
It's okay.
But that's very, very true. And on top of that, one more little thing I want to add into here is your knowledge of brands and what sells, but also your knowledge of platforms. Yes. Platforms are constantly changing policies, algorithms, what people are buying on those platforms, what the pricing looks like on those platforms. Strategy. And you have to be able to adapt and grow.
Yeah.
Okay, you want to introduce number 4?
Yes, this is probably the biggest misconception. This is the misconception that a reseller's gross sales, when a reseller says, I made $4,000 in sales this month, that does not equal their income. That is not the amount of money that was deposited in their bank account, and that is definitely not the amount of money that they are then showing on their tax forms.
100%. And I love this topic because we're going to be transparent. We're going to actually show you our numbers. And I think this will be very insightful for you. Yeah. Something that I had written down is that on $120,000 in sales, for example, so for resellers who are saying, I make $10,000 a month, right? $120,000 a year, 6-figure resellers.
Sure. In sales.
6-figure in sales, sure. So the reality is the things that I have written down is that they have cost of goods. I would say for us, our cost of good is very low at about $1 to $1.50 a piece. For most resellers across the country, the wide, sweeping, vast majority of resellers, you're talking about $5, $6, $7, $8 a piece. Buying from thrift stores, Goodwill, Salvation Armies, church sales, yard sales. You're talking about at least that $5 mark, if not more, a lot of the parts across the country. So that's 5 times more than our cost of good. On top of that, and I'm only saying that because I'm going to show our numbers too, so it's relevant for that. On top of that, platform fees of up to 20%.
Oh, don't even start about adding in promoted listing fees. Whew, suggested eBay promoted listing fees are 15%. That's on top of the 15% they already take.
Exactly. So you have up to 20% in platform fees, if not more, depending on if you're promoting or not. You have offers that you accept. You have closet clear out on platforms like Poshmark. You have discounted shipping that you end up covering the rest on different platforms. You have your gas that you're spending going sourcing. You have the food that you bought when you went to breakfast or lunch when you were out sourcing all day and you were really hungry. And if you were home, you would have made lunch, but because you were out, you bought lunch. And that is part of your expense as a business owner. You have your shipping supplies. You have returns. You have the desk that you bought so you could ship on. You have your Rollo or your Dymo printer or even the printer paper you're using and the ink for your regular printer. You have your storage containers, your storage space, the utility bills for the storage space if you actually have to pay utility bills. Not many people do. You have sometimes even employees or a virtual assistant. All of that counts, all of it. So on 120, it is not even close. And we're going to break down our numbers in a second, but I want to let Bethany make a comment first.
That's especially important to think about in terms of bigger operations. And I don't like to say that Sean and I run the biggest reselling operation because there are plenty of other people that make a lot more than us, like so many. But we run a big enough operation that we do have some of these expenses, and they might not be things that you think about when all you hear is we made $280,000 in sales.
Right. And speaking of which, I'm actually going to give you a breakdown of our numbers, so you'll see me looking down a little bit more because I want to make sure I'm being accurate. So, as an example, if you watched our video earlier, or even if you haven't, last year we made about $280,000 in gross sales from our business. Amazing, right? That sounds awesome. And by the way, that is amazing. I'm very grateful and very proud that we made that. Let me tell you how much we actually made on $280,000. Okay, so on $280,000 on that video, we actually broke down platform by platform how much we made on eBay, Poshmark, Depop, whatnot. I mean, not whatnot. We were on whatnot. Mercari, wholesaling, all that great stuff. Of that $280,000, before all of our allowable deductions, so just on the business income itself, we made about $130,000.
That's after cost of good. That's after platform fees. That is how much was deposited into our bank account minus cost of good.
Yeah, that's after we paid for our cost of good. We had we had at one point 2 employees. We had a VA. We had
multiple employees.
Well, we had not the same time. We didn't have multiple, but we had 2 separate employees throughout the year. One was a virtual assistant who was helping us with listing, and one was a photographer at one point. That's after our bins. That's after all of our gas, all our racks, all of our things. That's after all of our deductions. We made 46% profit margin.
And that's good.
And that's amazing.
And that's good.
That's with
for a business with other expenses.
That's with $1 per piece cost of good. And that's with only having at one time 1 employee. And we weren't even paying them a significant amount. We were paying $1,000 a month to our VA when we had them. And then when we had a photographer, we were paying them only a couple $100 a month. So that might have been in total for the year, maybe $20,000 that we spent. Maybe. I don't remember the exact number. But it could have been around $20,000 on an employee for the year. That means there's still 260 there. That means out of 260, we still spent $130,000 more, not including the VA and the employee. That's insane. And that's a really solid profit margin. Our CPA literally reached out to us and asked us, are you sure?
Anything else to write off?
Yeah, he asked us, are you sure you don't have anything else to write off? Because this seems very high for your profit margin. So if we're operating at 46%, imagine what most other resellers who are spending way more per piece and might even have a full-time employee, or even let's just say the same, but might not be doing 280. Maybe they're only doing 100, 150. And by only, I don't mean it in an insultive way. I'm just saying we were talking about the $120,000 mark. So this is to show you that even with all of that, we still only made, at 280, we only made $130,000 before our allowable deductions. That's transparency for you. That's 46%, it's almost 50. This year, even with dropping our high platform fees because we're wholesaling mostly and using whatnot, we're still only going to be sitting around the 50, maybe 55% profit margin.
Yes. Yeah, that's why we introduced wholesale as an idea to talk about that has a much greater profit margin. I think last year it was kind of averaged out between our bigger profit margin for wholesale versus traditional reselling, which is probably what you're thinking about in terms of eBay, Poshmark, and Depop. Those fees add up quickly. They add up super quickly right off the top. If you're selling on Poshmark, you sold it for $20, 20% is gone. That's it. It's never even going to hit your bank account. And if you offered $5.95 shipping, that's another shipping discount. Then what about your cost of good? What is your profit margin after your actual sales?
Yeah, it's very important, you know? And that's, by the way, that 130 that we made, that's also including, like what Bethany said, so much less platform fees. PayPal is only a 3% processing fee. So imagine if we would have had that 280, but all of it was on platforms. It would have been way less than that. I mean, significantly less. And to bring this back to the example of the $10,000 a month reseller and the 120K, even if they profited the exact amount that we did, which I find it almost impossible to believe that most people would be able to do that unless they have a Goodwill outlet or a $1 per piece cost of good, right? So even if they profited that 46%, let's just give them the benefit of the doubt and say 50% profit margin.
I just forgot a really big one. Guess what? We didn't have state taxes.
Oh yeah, we were in Austin, Texas.
Oh God, we don't have state taxes.
I'm not even including.
Think about.
I'm not even including taxes in this example.
Oh boy.
This isn't even including taxes. But my point to you guys is, on that 120K, let's say they profited more than us, 50%. On 120, that's only $60,000. And I find it real hard to believe that most resellers are able to accomplish that. I would say 80, 90% are not, because 80, 90% don't have such a low cost of good, right? And that low cost of good really does make a difference. And then when you're getting the 120K mark, a lot of resellers will have a VA of some sort or some kind of helper they're paying for. And there's just so many miscellaneous. And at that point, by the way, too, we didn't even have storage space. We had it in our home. So a lot of resellers will need storage space. They'll need, it balances out. And I would say even at that 50%, it's still $60K a year on 120K, which is amazing, by the way.
Yes.
I want to emphasize, that's awesome.
Even making $60,000 doing something that you love on your own schedule, that is amazing. Any amount of money that you are making on your own schedule, that you are doing what you love, that is amazing. This is just calling out, if you are sitting there and you are watching these big numbers that other people are putting out, if you looked at our video and you saw that we made $280,000 in sales and you said to yourself, God, I will never get to that point. They are making so much more money than me. I don't want people to look at our content and think that we are making more than we are. Like, I often think that there are words like six-figure reseller, that's even a word that we use. And there's so much more that goes into it that I think that we should all be aware of, because it creates these really false hopes. It's toxic. This is a toxic misconception. Just because you make $100,000 in sales, it doesn't mean that they made $100,000. And we should not look up to reselling YouTubers, reselling anyone as these false prophets for making that much if we don't really understand what's truly going on underneath their finances, because that is everything.
And we should also be really happy and excited that people are making full-time salaries reselling. Because the average household income in the United States, household income, is somewhere around the $75,000 a year mark.
If you
That's average. And that's average household income. That's not
an
average.
achievement.
Yeah, that's not average one-person income. That's average household income for people to be making about the 75K a year mark. And that depends where you live in the country, but that's the median, somewhere around that mark. So that's amazing. We just need to get off the high horse of the six-figure reseller and what that means if we actually don't know what that means, and if they actually aren't really six-figure resellers. If they want to call themselves six-figure resellers, that's fine, as long as there's some honesty and truth, and that's why we wanted to make this video and be transparent with you too. I bet you looked at that video of 280 and you were thinking, oh my God, making $250,000 a year plus? No, we made 130 together as a two-person couple. That's 65 a year per person.
And we're not saying that to down on our own achievements. Right. I'm quite proud. Yeah. I am so proud of the business that we built together. It is our baby, and I love it through and through. We only bring this up because often, honestly, I can speak from my own experience. When I was a baby reseller years ago, I would often look at the reselling YouTubers, the reselling people that I looked at, and I watched their content, and it almost dissuaded me from starting. It dissuaded me from growing because I would see these huge numbers and I would often compare myself. And I think that when we compare ourselves to numbers that don't even tell the whole story, we are already fighting from a losing hand. And that is like the worst thing that I could ever see someone go through, because I went through it myself. And that leads us into misconception number 5. The reason why we even wanted to bring this up is because the common misconception that I always hear is that reselling is too oversaturated and it is just too difficult to get into in 2024. And even with me saying everything I just said, I believe this fully. That is so far from the truth. It's not even funny. I truly believe now is the best time, now more than ever, to become a reseller. It is an exciting thing that when you pull up your social media, like Sean said, that everyone's trying to be a reseller. That's a good thing. That is an awesome thing. And despite everything that we spoke about, anyone, absolutely anyone, can learn the skills that they need to be able to transform their lives, making an extra few $100s a month, doing what they love on their own schedule. And they are set up for success once you understand the things that we talked about today, because you're not going to face the same problems, the same tribulations that we face. When we sat down, we saw how much we were making in sales, and we were disappointed that that's not what it was actually in our bank account.
Yeah, and I think the reason why we wanted to talk about these misconceptions is because we don't want you to have unrealistic expectations that will just not be met. Yes. We don't want you to think that if you're making $3,000 a month in sales, that you're making $3,000 a month in take home. It's just not the reality, whether it's $3,000, $10,000, or $30,000, right? And we wanted to make that something that we spoke about with you guys and make that not as a negative thing, but more as an eye-opening reality so that you have more realistic expectations. Anybody can start this, whether you want to go part-time and pay for a kid's tuition, or maybe a future vacation, or even for retirement, or if you want to go full-time. Again, last year we both made, if you wanted to break it down like that, we made $65,000 per person. That's
more than enough to support a household full-time.
That's more than enough to support a household full-time, at least our household, right? And the reality is that we're going to continue growing and building. We're only on year three full years of running this business together, and we're going to keep growing that. And we're going to get to 80, 90, 100 per person, right? In profit. But it doesn't have to be this thing that you strive for if it's just not going to translate from gross into net. That number, that vanity number of 6-figure or whatever that number might be, worry about what you're actually taking home and see how much you actually want to make. Because to be honest with you, to make $2,000 or $3,000 a month, it's very easy and very doable. It's very easy and very doable. Yeah. To go from $2,000 or $3,000 to $5,000 or $6,000, I would also say that is totally. It's probably easier for a solo person to do that than it sometimes is. You would think the opposite, but sometimes it's harder because you have misaligned agendas, and sometimes things get crossed, and you think one person did one thing and the other person did the other thing. God. And sometimes when you have two people, you get a little lazy. Yeah. Honestly, sometimes we both will get a little lazy in certain tasks. But when you have yourself,
if I drop the ball, he's gonna pick it up.
Yeah, when you have yourself and yourself only, and we know so many solo resellers doing more than us individually. And they're doing great. So this video was to not give up all of the negatives without inspiring and motivating, but to show you the truths and the realities and to let you know you can do it. Just know all of these other things are involved in that process.
I want this to inspire you. I want this to inspire you on your tough sales days, on the days when you're going sourcing and you're finding nothing, and it feels like everyone around you is finding these amazing gems and everyone is having awesome sales. They're not. And that's okay, because this is a roller coaster. Reselling is this wild roller coaster. And that's why I love it so much. Honestly, it is the best thing about being a business owner. And now more than ever, more people are buying secondhand. The secondhand market is absolutely exploding. And that is why, yes, even though reselling is simple and not easy, now is the perfect time to actually get started. Because no, it's not going to be easy, but you, me, and everyone else are pretty much facing these same trials, these same problems, and we are all going through it together. And that is why I wanted this video to kind of serve as, maybe when you are having that bad day, I want you to come look back at this, and I want you to see that we're people. You're people. We are all just people. We are reselling, and we are doing what we love at our own schedule, and that in itself it's such an awesome achievement.
It's irreplaceable to be able to do that. We've been able to live an amazing life together and continue building our life. And also, looking back at that, when we see 280 and only made 130, I say only made, but really profited 46%, we looked at each other and we said, well, what can we do this year to improve that? How do we go from 46 to maybe 50 or 55%? And then how do we grow that gross number so that that will profit more? Right? Or maybe how do we lower that gross number to 200, but how do we profit 70% on 200? Right? There's so many different things that you can think about, and we're all, like Bethany said, just growing, and we're all just people. And I hope that you guys appreciate this video and you appreciate the transparency. We will always be transparent and show our numbers and talk about our realities and what life looks like, and we hope that this is of some value to you.
If you like this kind of content, please feel free to subscribe. Yeah, that was good. This is the kind of content that we're always going to strive to put out, and if you like this, be sure to check back.
Check back. We love you. We appreciate you for watching, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.
See ya.